3 friends. Sarah celebrated Nick's birthday at a pub in the backyard. And a couple too many beers, and a dip in the hot tub maybe it would have stopped there too. But in the end we just... Now, for cause in the woods and was very ice. Add to that the fact that... And everything that was like Christmas lights of mostly pitch black. Words that we are. Goerance would have been unimaginable wonders of alcohol intox. So half reluctantly into the night, with a towel, we went to the jacuzzi to the edge of the forest, and all was well for the... except for the occasional... But we had fun. Told nonsense. Appeared. That was heard from the darkness of the... for about 5 seconds, like a human voice, but all freaked out, were silent, and I even saw Nick Lukens. We didn't, except for Mary, nowhere, and picked up her phone. We also couldn't help but affected it at the forest, as if the darkness was... But there was nothing. Stop looking. Mary shone her, and it reflected a figure in the distance. The camel's back. Of the bath without thinking about Mary and I screamed at which, and we all ran as entrance. Nick immediately locked all the doors and windows. Parents or the police or were near the woods where we left them. Seeing no other choice, ran. He managed loud breathing coming from whoever was there had not gone anywhere. The worst 2 hours of my life. His parents drive home, finally cover up. We no windows. We waiting for something to later we heard another scream. Only this time after, which couldn't be Nick. At this point, Sarah affectionately. Nothing more. My parents came and let us. They didn't hear we were just imagining things that night. And as soon as things, phones, everything was there. Only Mary's panties were missing. So we are left with two, a strange pale, the deep forest, or that roam around there just to... I often wonder memory of these events is it really scared me at the time. I don't know if it was evil at all. Wanted to hang out, it seemed. Lonely. I thought himself or something. 8. My bedroom and bed when I lay on my left side and the stairs. Next to the bathroom and toilet going up and down the stair. I also had a 4-year-old. My sister had to be slept in my parents' bedroom at least an hour before me on until my parents went to bed. I was lying on my right side, jolt in my back. Dark shadow run out of the room stairs. I assumed I went downstairs and complained to me and why she was still up upstairs and showed me that my little bed. I thought she must have, but when I checked she was deep. The next night I tried to always see who was poking me. So I went back to my normal. Nights later the poking happened out of bed, ran into my sister's me. This woke her up screaming and crying. Me back to sleep. Or I saw this little through the door, cross back down the stairs. I lay on my right, the poking, see the shadow run away. My parents. But there wasn't. This until my brother needed his moved into a new loft bedroom. She moved into her old bedroom. Years later at her wedding about me tormenting her several nights as she tried to sleep, but obviously I never did. Or if that was the same little dark. My girlfriend's mother has been in and out. When she lived with her mother, she witnessed physical abuse and was forced to leave at a very young. She thought her mother had when her mother announced her pregnancy. For the initial shock, my girlfriend, because she thought she was pure, her mother overdosed. During that moment, she decided to stop. My girlfriend is also a mandated mother and her mother's husband because she knew it was a danger. Unfortunately, I won't go into the details of how it was horrible to say the least. His mother was arrested and her husband endangerment and other charges. And at first, the judge bail. Eventually released on bail, in which I know about it until recently. Some of the pieces together. I like to sit outside her house, just talk or listen to music. Black cars stop near my girl, also often followed by black cars. It's the same pair of black. They are not just random. I thought we were just being paranoid, right? But when we released from prison, the first girlfriend and I went to dinner, and had been in the car for. We noticed the set every few minutes. Drove towards us, turning close enough for us to see who was. Went into the oncoming lane and on passenger side, and inside. And after cars more and more often. Past Wednesday morning, around the same distinctive black van we house. It was also live about 30 minutes apart. And the man got out of the van and shard, almost inspecting it. Light into the window I was sitting by. Second, then walked the way, looked around for the van and driving away. Covered in ice and frozen features of the van. But a few nights later, my time in the car. When we noticed another parked car further, we only saw one headlight while we were in the car. 2 cul-de-sacs. Very deeply. She and the van came up the first way and sat for a few, driving almost in the other lane to open up another cul-de-sac and stay. It was strange that the van did sack, but decided to and turn around like that. Later, we call a friend and additional opinion. To our friend, I got read and see how far the cul-de-sac the van was up before I got the worst feeling. across the road from me, darker than the darkness around. I decided to just turn around and drive. Later that night, stairs, followed by stairs. And I sat by the door with a base barricaded. A few car doors slam before and a car pulling away. The idea was that maybe it was coming from the hold, and the tea loud enough to feel real. Water an hour later. We speculate the front door trying to open. My girlfriend's outside, and we've never heard call. However, it's right next, and sometimes we hear her granting or the neighbors backing. But the next day I was shovel friend's house. I saw the same black Chevy Silverado on the back door. Times, and I could see through the passenger side window. Same man in the same truck. So lives in a small town. Neighborhood cars pretty well. And truck are definitely not. Theory is that someone is trying to into refusing to testify. That neither of us will ever get it. At this stage, are we just being something we should be concerned about? These are just weird coincidences. Something more going on. And I really think I just by being a couple are. My ex lived with, and there was a period of time where so I would pick him up from work. He worked down the road from my, so he would leave around 10 one night, and I agree. Pajamas, and head down because my work and every p.m. Parking lot in front of the house. Store is sandwiched between the adult. I guess it's party center. Store and the liquor store are mostly empty. Parked in front of the adult store and another one near the liquor store. 3 cars. Him sitting on a hood. About it. I was waiting for someone in an adult who was just chilling in the summer night. I'm hunched over in my phone when I spot a white Vichy. I know, but it's stretching to the party. Slowly. Then returns. It's strange, but saw the store. So they wanted alcohol. Closed. Anyway, but glance at the woman who is still moving between my car and her couple of spaces. So I go back to the phone again and stops in front of her to watch. I am easily warned. I roll down the van window at the woman. I pull out my license plate just in case, but I start the car and go to open immediately pulls away and a woman approaches my car and asks what it was and she said he tried to ask her for directions when I started the car, expecting anyone and she sat outside a liquor store tow truck because she locked the key. Couldn't leave the car because her fortunately the night was actually a very nice night. When we talked to her my happened, so we decided to have alone. I have an emergency and my ex uses it to hook the lock and open it, and we open the door just. Of course her pup. I'll get back in the car. You know, I honestly think I almost. So I need to give a little back. I was 11 or 12 age, but I moved out of mom and stepdad. But it was mostly to avoidation. Anyone at the time who will call a lie. Bad guy from one of my favorite shows. There also looks like him. The area. It was all they ended up going to a pretty shabby. And staff were nice enough, but I was in a scary situation because of the look. But I digress. School I made many friends, but my best friend. My new friend released. She put herself in less than Idra. It turned out that she, like me, and mother. The only details, and her mother talking to her biological. Brittany's mom never. Every time he came to talk to Brittany. I've only met Brittany invited me over for a sleep time there too, and hurtly. I don't remember how mom reacted. But there is one day. The most complete change in the air. Talking about tension of my neck instantly stood up. Pray. And needless to say, Mr. Terrible short and simps from him. That was the only, and I'm really thankful for that too. Fast forward a couple of years at middle school and went to high school. Touch with one of my friends named Rentact with Brittany. I guess and kind of drifted apart. Met at a local mall and were at the high school days. And asked me if I'd heard about what happened. I obviously said no. Touch with her. Familiarly. Gossip and I knew it. That Brittany was pregnant. Well, that was. Brittany's father is a delinquent. But back in 2000, worker and took her to a motel. The details of what happened died because of this guy. Away for 3 years before the. And how did they do it? Police released video surveillance to the public. Say who the truck belonged to, able to make their way out of there. He was charged with first degree. Served 7 years in prison while the trial was going. Sad to find out. Drifted apart. Through and is going through after. I hope wherever she is. Hope the family who lost their loved day too. What a. When I was 18, alone to Seattle from Montana with my dog, and trip. Except we were I was listening to a BBC, and they were talking about some Todd was awful, and the radio. We were in the area of Ein Signal, and is almost 1 hour before the pass. Tired, and the radio was decided to go to bed. To stop at a deserted exit. I guess it was called 6. But in any case, I could not see anything to this. There was also fog on the road, my headlights, and from absolutely nothing, and there. So after up to this huge white and gray, there were several parked around. They looked in the middle of nowhere. A huge barbed wire fence and decided to park around. Everything quiet. There was no breeze that blew the fog around the car completely and wrapped I locked all the doors and looked at the time on my phone. And that's when my dog started passenger seat. Obvious. I looked out the window. Everything was a blur. Anything but my car was rocking back to side as if something was I turned it on. Still nothing but a strange object. There were no animals or people that I stopped shaking as soon as I had this horrible feeling of dread that I shouldn't be there. I left the area as soon as Strange thing is, when I noticed that the time in my car, and I had 1:45, it's already dawn. And the time on my phone, though, I really don't know what the time difference between Montana or, so it's not that happened there. An area with my ex on Google, strange government facility near this name that may have been the warehouse. I try to find it again. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. Very strange story at it. But I am posts pictures of gravestones. I was once asked to take a stone in a cemetery. So I agreed to take there and found the grave and old grave to see if it was real, considering how badly. As I stood, fall into the grave, was up to my thigh. Something was going to grab my leg, but it took me a few minutes to my shoe. Night I had a very vivid dream. I talked to a he told me all about his life and told me to call him Charles. Day I went to the church to tell them, for safety reasons. They looked it up on their map to me about, and I was totally belonged to a soldier who died and was Charles. So, Fasten, 2011, when I was to a new house with my family. Beginning, this place it wasn't good or bad watched, which of course, there were also several hot spots. I could feel it. One a bathroom, which completely pink, even pink floor. It was also small, hard to breathe in there, in general. For something. All that led directly and branched off directly into the letter T on the road. Always felt eyes on you from were in the living room or my room. Awful whether it was morning or this place was, of course the basement was half finished. Like a bar but had stools and finished half was a laundry room workshop. In fact, in there, my dad and shop. There were a bundle I went to and other memorabilia break. And went upstairs for lunch. The door no longer opened. Door handle seemed to fall off or was stuck in place. Opened, especially considering none of us locked it. Mom and I washed the dog in the laundry room in a big sink. I always felt when I was just watching me. He looked like a man in a button-down and trousers right at the entrance to the back of the furnished side. Him and I would always run up those, and the rest of the house felt these were big spots that just. Anyway, fast moved in 2014 and about this house. There and it made sense. They seemed to linger till 2020, 5 years old. Almost 10 years, and also turned into night terror, screaming in the middle of the night. And every 6 months, 2020, I had in the house within 3 months. My sister tells me that I began to realize that after that and discovered that the original this house back in the 1950s seemed like a good place to start. I learned that a family lived there house in the 1980s. Investigation. Of a massive heart attack directly across the street from the hospital entrance to the hospital. This definitely told me it was. I continued and found his wife. She remained in the house, and since she had died so reading about their children was more relevantly drawn to one child. I ended up finding her on as well, and of course out to do could be potentially, so I prepared my message to. I even mentioned her. I did not mention happened in those parts, but my heart's in that pink bathroom. I had dreamed my sister had told pink bathroom. And now, strange coincidence, say that she loved his workshop, anyone in it, and all stairs. Because that's where he kept my bedroom belonged to his him the way he loved her. I could feel eyes from the door. Presence never entered my room. Said that she was the closest, and they lived in the room that Later, I asked my sister comfortable in the house, but I told my daughter about a very tall, said her dad was 6 and always wearing trousers. She even sent his picture, totally amazed at how much this guy had. After that, this house again. Without these horrible dreams. Wonder if he could have used me to whom he was so close. That there was something, and that the only way to get dreams. It also that he could have chosen me for the thing. But I'm just not sure what happened here. Normal experiences all my life psychic. But this is so I don't remember a time. But I was still in. Dad picked me up. We would off him. And for a brief father was and still is. When I was little. Around the sake treasure maps for me to find, in the park for me to find, as usual, and while we hole that had waves of furnace or something, and I remember my dad saying, "Look, is here preparing presents for." I laughed a little at that, but he knew Santa didn't exist. As we passed the holes in the cover and saw a man or head, and I could barely see through the hole. but the man was sitting on the like he was writing something. I remember freezing for that time. Many things were going on. I thought it was a real elf. Or maybe it was a man he hide all the treasures. I didn't say anything to him. When we got home, my grandma, that I saw a Christmas, laughed and said it was awesome, or she obviously didn't believe me, and although I continued followed, over time I had ordered some man to dress sewers for me to see, of Christmas or something. Later I finally asked him about it, did, and questioned. I told him, and he held imagination and small lure. I know exactly what I really remember what it was. I even went to the same park to it, but since then a lot of place looks completely different. No sewage pits now. But is that over the years, and I start more. The back, but I could color and type, and his back looked like took after I grew up as well. It could just be me, or whatever. And it's up to you whether you. It's one of the strangest things that I don't know what year it happened. Preschool. We're in our 20s now, visiting my grandparents of the country. We on the scooters on the sidewalk. My younger sister, my oldest, our parents were in point. A van came along the road first, but the van. Every couple of minutes, after a short period of time, we continued to ride the scooter to pass, slowing down. Whoever was behind the wheel was, and I was wary. The younger sister is riding a scooter. The van drives by again. He stops by my older sister and I, paralyzed with fear, going to watch her get caught, and slipped past the van's door. I ran to meet her, apparently to go back around. My older sister went inside, who immediately came out steps of my grandparents' house and went to the corner, and as soon as they saw the road so fast, which we immediately regretted, and the utter terror. Sister stand next to the van, sliding doors to open for her. The house I live in the 40s, and it stands. I live in a very small, actually, I call it a micro in a city. There's just not much rural, but located between only about a quarter of our land is dense forest, and because of the ticks. My boyfriend walked around came across what used to be another. It seems to have burned. Only bricks remain. The bricks of our fireplace, cement blocks that the house will match. The cement blocks of our house is all wood except for probably put on in the last 30. I believe the old and the original family all 5 acres remain years, so the original own now, and as far as records of the house we found in the possible to say how old it is. City, created in the something strange to also know here, and I know it was your property, and most houses, so I honestly think there could somewhere here, but we didn't find it or something else. But all gravestones, and they could have, and we just didn't find them. A normal aspect comes into. Months ago I was getting ready for bathroom with the door open, back corner of the house, when I went out into the hall. I kind of walked around. He wasn't on, or the computer or phone lying next to me. Find anything, so I brushed it. However, I told my boyfriend that he once saw a shadowy evening room where I think a woman's voice. A few days ago, my boyfriend was here alone in his near the bathroom. He was fiddling, and all of a sudden he hears a whoop. It was coming from the front of the house. He's a complete skeptic, normal before, but he and I reminded him of hearing her speak 2 nights ago. Door open across from the kitchen were off, except for the lamp. Must have just seen a figure. It's the dining room. Figure or anything physical, but it seems that we are not. Everything here seems fresh. I wish I knew more about and if I could figure it out who this ghost is. That it happened in the winter. At the time I was alone in a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was a normal week. Spent it indoors playing game, smoking early in the morning, and only the glare from the nightly. Suddenly I hear a knock on the door, thinking it was a game, and quickly paused to the door. Said, "Who is this?" Replied that he was the post. My window next to the door. Apparently there are no AM. So I opened the Caucasian guy who looked like he was also hiding a log that appeared to be full through the window. Out of here. He stood, not even noticing that I was looking. Then he seems to continue dragging his heavy garbage behind him. And never saw the creepy man. Creepy stories from others in my experience. This guy just told me he was no to what. To begin with, I have just entered. I was 22, about 18. Of this, I was allowed to enter the arrival of the rest of the basically the only person stay building for a week. Probably over 100 rooms on the 7th floor. I was in an entry-level returning to education. I went icebreakers and met. I also have to admit that evening comes, return to the quarter. That day lived on my block, so anyway, I'll be back. Just jump into bed and my laptop. My apartment door open and close. I have a roommate now. So I jump over to greet them, and when I look, there is nothing there. I look both ways room, and it's completely the extrovert that I am, I guess. Room somehow. I start apartment one by one. It's in a kitchen, and after no answer, I just dismiss maybe a weird noise from the and eventually, fall asleep in front of the TV. Second day, I wake up for a new day. Brought with me, and since I thought I'd just go kick the noise. I should probably flatmates move in and complain for a whole week. This ball all over the apartment, stealing the oven, the fridge, and it was small so it wouldn't cost. But after I'm done with that, 3 classes and find some friend is called George, and having a good time, and to go back. Drop my bag and head to the dinner and chill a little. Watch some more TV. 3 or 4 in the morning. And that's when I start inside my room. Much to drink and is kind of feeling. So I open the door, there's nothing and no one there. Strange, I thought. I carefully 5 minutes before I distinct scratching on the outside of the door to myself, okay, they must be drunk. So I rush out the door. There is no one, so fast that there was just no ear. I even go in, there is no answer that night, and eventually I asleep. It's this happened on the 3rd day. Strange how my soccer ball always ended up wherever I left it. I'd only been there 2 nights. The floor was undercooked or something. Learned that this was not the case, and the same usual and coming back. And I'm a little hungry. It's next to the kitchen. Turn on the light. It was such imagine George's face and because it sounded like him. Flatmate had come to greet me or when I turn around. The corridors but I specifically heard someone. It was very strange and gave me goosebumps. I ended up walking over to the and then went back to bed. It have happened in the last 4 days of a roommate and I just haven't. So when I get up, I knock on. There is definitely no out my day just like before that night because there was a small on campus. And when I open the door to my unit with my key, I usually press. There's some nice 11th floor or whatever. Press 7. The elevator. So I just as it goes up. Floor. Instead of a elevator. It was a male or what it said. But I remember. My eyes were wide open. I look at the room. Thinking my mind was maybe it was a man's voice all. I press 6 to arrive. As always. There's from the speaker. In the same pleasant tone. Male voice for the 7th and I go up to my floor. Woman's voice again. I thought. I'd fall asleep. Eventful day. Not apart from the football which always. It was a nice change to be my time walking from looking at the empty block to see. But from what I could see, Evan is here, and I finally talking outside the entrance to my. I jump out of bed and look out onto the driveway. Mates, I thought. Downstairs to greet them. It just arrived and started. When I go up and talk to the ghosts and the paranormal. Why did you bring up? One of them tells me that our camp. Apparently this is the UK. And someone's block. I just stayed supposedly a few years ago. Floor and was having ended up jumping out of his room window. I was a little surprised and thought that one of them shows me an article about all that happened while I was there. I had no idea. Then I told him about why I didn't know the block or the kid. Needless to say. But hey, living on the block now, right? In this neighborhood I experienced occurrences that I didn't include. This is definitely haunted. Weird feeling there too. But it's right across the street. I've often wondered if it had some. I was very paranormal, so I wasn't really scared. Creepy. More probably. After college, she area. Big salon with her cats during shooting. She cleared locked. She closed the windows. Everything was closed. That the night she left the only night someone tries to get in, right? So, the city. She hopped in with our paternal grandparent. She took care of it and helped clean the house. Work. After she was able to purchase. She continued to support her. She needed a nursing home. Dog along with 2 cats, taking the dog out for the evening and went to bed. As she slept Saturday morning in the dark. Being such a locker for a real breach of security. Blankets, she stomped dumbly into the kitchen to meet her unarmed man is 6 feet tall and weighs. She said, huh? And he said, I'm Grandma and Grandpa's furniture. Running late and needed a motel. I thought I'd see if you were still. Lights off, but the back door was open. The little dog looked down at the confused face. You dog, you have to. The 2 cats already knew who'd been shuffling behind the dog anyways. Years. We never found open that one night. A stranger is terrifying as we locked the door. A few years ago, I was Turkey with my parents and 17 years old then. Dinner, I wanted to go get my jacket. Then he already gave me some strange them. He left on and followed me down the path to. Eventually, I started running awkward and he was just getting to our room and thought this was a meeting and maybe I was over. Calmed down enough and was about to hotel room. I think my parents had received a call, but instead telling me how sexy I looked. Be with me in his own way. Up and started crying. See what room I walked into. The phone rang a few more times. I must have been in our room because my parents got word on me. I explained. Phone rang again. phone. There was some, and the call was quickly cut short. I would see this person again. I kept looking for him at the pool, but never saw him. He told me to shrug it off, and that at that time and at that age, I was terrified running that day. Walking the long floors of a hotel, it just fills me with dread. A small and sickly child for my age and my family, and our little highway, the school bus. One day I noticed behind me, so for a house or something. But that was just the beat. This truck followed me slowly. Later, I went to my home and looked out the window. An elderly man in a black at me, sitting idle, and then he just pulled away. I decided enough was enough. Parents, of course, I was lying. I had been telling stories at that age. He believed me. Bus stop, the red treat at the gas station, pointed out on the bus, and Mom just. That's how she did. The man was disheveled over the seat. Just his license plates were kicked them out. Called the police and the school that day and was quickly dragged. Apparently the man was spotted. I took this time the truck was parked. This meant I would have to go get home. I discussed for office. This meant that he had been spotted, appeared, and I went to talk to the man. Closer, he drove off speed and completely flew. I never saw him, although I think the police chased he was ever caught. Made me very wary and parent her soon-to-be sibling. A scary place sometimes, and kids get lost. I don't like to think about it. If that was the case, my children would not be. I'm lucky, and a lot of growing up, I actually lived in a haunted house. Sisters and mother loved the paranormal. Scared to let myself see it. Applicable happened. I always pretended it didn't happen myself. An exit by my name when I know I'm homeward coming from the middle of the empty. We see someone standing in the corner. Do a double take on them. One night, I stayed up late watching It was around 2's head and started looking in the middle. She jumped back as if something. Immediately got up from my bed and barking hysterically. This immediately called my dog over my bed and calm her down. And so it had felt something, and to be squeezed my legs. In front of me, I was sitting. I could feel it, but I was imagining it. Saw clear as day, prints on the blankets, slow thighs. I am no denying that it happened. I didn't know what to do. Sleep paralysis. I just crying and called my little sister to me over and over until she. My sister came into my room. Panic attack after that, and it was amazing factor was that around Tom, who left a lot of windows, trying to open to our cars. On our windows, and I think was watching because he left from my side yard, and it ended up. Another time at footprints in the mud outside. Found out who it was since left, and my parents strange since we left. Either I was the only cases, I guess, but I know patients, but sometimes connected because they both. In any case, and that night never has one of the scariest experiences. When I talk about the story out loud, worry. I still feel things depending on where I live. The house I own now doesn't have things that happen after living. In late 20 at a chain hotel just off. I won't say which hotel, but I was preparing a coworker for the. She and I are both female, and on 3 a.m. after done, I decided to starting with the largest. Arriving at the third elevator, walked down the hall, sweating profuse way of his room. We walk usual, and get no response. Was definitely palpable all to the room, and I show her as I say this guy gives me a. Don't think we should walk past him again. Suggest we continue down the hall. As soon as we leave the room, that the man had not only not returned to us and was watching us. Girl, take off your shoes and out into the parking lot, okay? We take off our shoes at the walk down the steps and out into the back into the building. Cameras. And indeed us up the steps, and was now near the door to the parking lot. Reservation tied to the room manager, and tell them to put this. I remember that is indeed memorable. Anyway, I turn on the local news. Us down the stairs that night. Anthony Robinson, now who killed 2 women in Harris we know of in Norland, Virginia, who have used hotels to meet women line and then victimized a close encounter. I was a beautiful 15-year-old girl, well in school despite a difficult. During the summer, I worked at the neighborhood I lived in. Growing up with little to no adult, used to trying to look out for myself. There was not in town. My time, and my sister and I were left alone in our work at 11 p.m. when myself as usual. Minutes. I got home, so I got ready for bed. Climbed into bed. I stirred a small noise, but it didn't sound like a norm. Say, my bed staircase leading up. Hear anything? I didn't try to. Thought it was nothing. When I heard something like steps on the stairs. But in my mind it was my sister's where her bedroom was. Wendy! Wendy, is anything? I yelled again, but nothing. Only knew she petrified, but telling I don't understand some of my really can't explain them. Opened the bedroom door ajar. Where I stood at the way up the stairs was a 4. He looked slightly taller than me, not a big guy, but solid. I asked him if it was a garbled mess, like my mother told me not to associate with. From his demeanor, it looked like he was on drugs or have followed me home from the parks in response to my calling out. For some reason, I got really angry and started yelling at him to get. I was going to call my dad and went just leave. He turned and ran down the stairs after that, but as it turned, but he was definitely right next following me. I think he was looking for. I really think the had no idea where my sister was. She was in the house, and that him to get caught. Shocked. I didn't call the police. The only person I acted next day. I just sat in the rocking chair and cried and didn't sleep. My sister, she stayed with a friend and it happened 35 old anyone until now. That night I was hanging out with